Welcome to the show, everyone. I have on our favorite couple. You are our favorite couple to interview. Absolutely 100%. Of course, besides Doug and I. If you're finding this on YouTube, hi, I'm JJ. This is my channel. What that means is I'm going to talk. If you don't like me, that's totally cool. You can find more at harvillandhelen.com for Harville, Hendrix, and LaKelly Hunt. Welcome back, guys.
Thank you. We're delighted to be back and delighted to see you and your smiling face. You have such a wonderful and infectious smile. I wish I had one like that. I have to kind of make myself smile.
I think just your energy, Harville, like your excitement, your passion, your curiosity. That's what I appreciate about you guys. In the stage of life that you're in, how many people are pioneers? You guys are pioneers. You're out there making a difference. You're seeing the vision of the world and you want it to be better, and you're not resting until you've given it every last drop of your energy to do so, right?
You're not.
Well, that's what I love about you. There's too many old cranky people in the world who aren't trying to do anything. They're not even curious. That's what I love about you. You're curious. You ask questions, you're present, you want to help, you want to give. I'm going to start to cry. Anyway, today we're talking about their latest book, their newest book, How to Talk to Anyone About Anything. Okay. Tell me, what inspired this?
Well, that's a sort of serious story. And I think we can also say something kind of funny. But let me do the serious story first, so that grounds us and gives us credibility, and chime in on the story
I'll
as you like.
totally let him begin the first 10 minutes or so.
Okay, you're on the clock, Harville.
So I'm on the clock. I got 10 minutes to tell the story. And I'm sure I can do it in less time than that, because by that time it would probably get boring. But the book arises out of a shift in our careers. Our careers have been basically Helen in the women's movement, me in couples therapy, Helen joining me in couples therapy, and we are co-authors, as you know, now of 12 books.
Yeah, and I don't know if you know that one day I was minding myself in New York City, picked up the phone, and it said, "Helen, this is the Seneca Falls Hall of Fame. We want to induct you as the founder of feminist philanthropy." Well, there was one other woman who I learned from, and I always thought it should be her, but I was the one that had that woman come and speak in Dallas, Texas, and then it got started, and then proposed to Harville, and then moved to New York and the New York Women's Foundation, and Gloria had me on her board. And so I'm the founder of Women's Philanthropy, meaning people can change over time. Women used not to be able to go to college. Women couldn't host their own podcast. And women couldn't have a bank account. They couldn't have a credit card. So women and money has changed.
Yeah.
And now, Gloria Steinem says our dialogue skills are the next stage of feminism. And that's what the subject of the book is.
Yeah. So that's where the book comes from. Our career had been in intimate partnership, plus Helen's global impact on women. But about 10 years ago, I went through a little metamorphosis emotionally, which was living with this activist who had impacted half of the people on the planet by the women's movement, which is about half the people on the planet. I developed a sort of absorbed a social consciousness. She doesn't think about just, a few people and about healing a few people, but she thinks about changing the status of women in the world and changing history. And so I absorbed that and became aware one day that doing couples therapy was not going to change the world. First of all, only 3 or 4% of people who go to therapy are couples. So, and it's clear that we learn later from tipping point theory that if you're going to change the world, you have to change at least 25% of it, of any system. You have to change 25% of a system before that system will change. So working with 3 to 4% of the population would not make any changes in the culture itself. So what we had also developed, as you know, and we've talked about before, is what we call the dialogue process. And the dialogue process is very simple. Most people speak in monologues. I talk, you listen. and parallel monologues. I'm talking, you listen, I talk, and you listen, but nobody listens. That everybody just talks, and that this talking is what created the problem for couples. Is they didn't listen to each other, so they were in misunderstanding, conflict, and finally would go into opposition, and then come to see us to talk about how could they have better communication or whatever their problem was. But we were aware that the dialogue process for us had been used with our family. Couples who found it used it with their children, then began to use it sometimes in their business and in friendships. And so it got the idea, it was born. This is not just the engine of couples therapy. This is the engine of human connection, which happens in couples therapy, but could happen anywhere. So this book comes from a decision we made to take dialogue and extend it from the couples therapy into the world and basically make it available to the whole world. And then we got to thinking about, well, what does that mean? And so if we did it to the whole world, that would be 7.8 billion people. Pretty big number.
I'm married to a guy who studies tipping point theory.
Yeah. So the question was,
he said, Helen, if we can just get 2.4 billion.
Well, we started off with 7.8. How are we going to do that? Mm-hmm. And then I began to think about that and do research on how do systems change. When we were talking about not just a Dallas or Texas or America, but the human system itself, all of the population of the planet. And it's really clear that the change happens only to a system when you change 25% of it. In other words, the behavior of the people, 25% of the people learn dialogue, then the rest of that system will change. So if you apply that to the planet as a whole, it means we would have to reach only 2.4 billion of the 7.8 billion people on the planet. Well, that seems like a more reasonable task, but still a pretty challenging one. The methodology of doing that, we're still developing. But the book came out of that. We went into that about 10 years ago, began to experiment in Dallas with taking dialogue to the public, and had great success with that. People showed up in droves to learn how to talk. And we said, we finally called it, to distinguish it from the engine of imago of dialogue in therapy, which we call imago dialogue. We called it Safe Conversations Dialogue for the global social movement called Safe Conversations. So everything needs a book. So along the way, we began to put together this book because we needed a way for everybody to know and to distinguish what we were doing with couples from what we were doing, to distinguish it, but also see the continuity of what we were doing with the public in general. So we thought the book, and it's written to say, basically to the reader and to anybody in the world, you can talk with anyone about anything if you follow certain guidelines. And the guidelines is a structured conversation called dialogue, which you learn to do and practice as a skill until you integrate it into your life as a new capacity. And when you do that, Helen has the beautiful and comments on what happens to the brain when you move from monologue to dialogue. You get a new set of neuronal cells. Your brain, in other words, changes. So that's what the book is about, and it's about saying, "Hey, come along and join us," because it's sort of the banner of the global social movement.
Okay, so I have been using your couples dialogue. How long? I was just thinking about this today when I was putting on these earrings, Harville, because I was like, well, this greenish blue ocean, which reminds me of the ocean, does not really match this blue, but it's all blue. And I remember our first conversation 6 years ago in 2018, and Helen, you weren't able to make it that time, and you had on a Hawaiian shirt, similar to the one you have on now, but it was like blue. And somewhere in the conversation, we talked about you saying how much you love the ocean. And so that's why you were wearing the shirt, to remind you of the ocean. You were bringing it to you. Mm-hmm. So I think it was probably around that same time I started using the couples dialogue. It was too late in the marriage that I was in, although I wish we would have been able to use it. That would have been interesting to have. And I'd already had all your books and I had the workbook, but I was waiting to be in a relationship to use it. That was the first mistake. Although in divine timing, it all worked out the way it was supposed to work out. So I used it since in my current relationship. And you've met Doug. We've been to Esalen with you for that and interviewed you on, I think, Dethroning the Therapist was the name of that. And it was the four of us after that time.
Dethroning the therapist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, you actually came up with that,
Right.
Helen. And actually, to also comment on sort of your super duo power couple energies. I know, Helen, you're an Aquarius, and Aquarius are very globally socially inclined, like thinking of the bigger picture, thinking of the humanitarianism versus your Virgo. So you're more structured in that. That's why you're the details of the steps and the process, right? So what a perfect pair for the two of you to serve together, because it takes both visions and minds, one to be broad and not general, but broad and futuristic, and one to be specific and pointing towards steps, because I think those two combinations make for more powerful learning when you can encompass not only what I need to learn now, but why am I learning this and how is this going to help humanity and everyone included to sort of get a buy-in to not only do this for myself, but to do this for others. So I will tell you that many clients of mine have used the couples dialogue, and I've told them for years, and we did a show on safe conversations also, but I tell people to do it with their children, do it with their friends, do it with their employee, because it creates that safe space. So I'm flipping through the book right now, and I see that you go through explaining all the parts of the dialogue and the mirroring and the empathy and the validation. But is there in here, because I haven't seen every page yet, is there in here a copy of the structure, or are you wanting people to read this and learn without needing the papers? I think the papers are very helpful, but I can understand where some people could get a little like, oh, I don't want to hold a paper, I don't want to hold a script. But it is so helpful to hold the script, because you have to relearn something. You have to learn how to do something differently, and until you get it, the script it makes it safe. So in this book, is there a script?
Well, not so much a script, but it is scripted. That is, there's a detailed explanation of each step of the dialogue process with some interpretation about what each step achieves. Like, is now a good time to talk achieves boundary management. And then saying, let me see if I got it. You learn to reflect back so that you begin the listening process. And by the way, one of the things that I hope I emphasized enough in this book, and when I say I mean we, is that the important thing about a dialogue is sort of a new awareness. I'm just amazed at how things that I can talk about for years, and all of a sudden I realize what I'm talking about. That I don't understand that, but that what dialogue does is basically bring listening into the balance with talking. Now, human beings have talked for thousands and thousands of years, but we can't find that they have listened while other people were talking, except to obey because they were usually owned. We were owned by other people for centuries. To obey or to disobey, to rebel, and now, you listen in order to refute or to find something that's wrong with what the person is saying, but not listening to get the other person, to understand them, to allow another world over here to go into your world so that you're now occupied by that world. And that's a point of view that's as valid as your point of view. And it stretches you to see and think in a different way. That has not been on the human agenda. What's been on the human agenda is the way I see the world is the way it is, and you need to see it my way, or take the highway. We're going to have some problems. And most marriages break up because they can't accept difference, that there are two worlds in every marriage, and there will always be two worlds in every marriage. And there's no way not to have two worlds, because there are two brains, and every brain has a unique access to reality and makes up its own world and lives in its own world. And you have to talk to say, oh, so that's what an orange tastes like for you. An orange tastes this way for me. And both of us are eating an orange, but it's a different orange. That's a fundamental truth that, if not understood, is the fundamental source of conflict. No, oranges taste like this. No, oranges taste like this. No, oranges taste both ways. This way in your mouth, that way in your mouth. And when you get that, then you have what is, in fact, reality. That difference defines nature. So, but I think what I was am
Can I
trying
just
what
mention
I'm
that?
trying to say, let me just finish this
Okay.
little sentence I'm on, is that listening is the new thing that dialogue brings to humanity. Talking, we didn't need to bring talking. We need to bring how to talk differently. But that listening, not just how to listen better, as somebody the other day said, could we get back to the good old days of listening? There have never been any good old days of listening. Human beings have never listened. They've always talked. We've always talked. So I think that's what we're bringing into this. And I just want to emphasize that listening is the only way you can know someone. It is the only way change occurs. And it is, as my theological mentor, Paul Tillich, said, listening is the first act of love. You can't love anybody you have not listened to without judging them, because you don't know them, and you can only love what you know, or you can love a fantasy, but it's not the person. It's the person you made up. So anyway, you wanted to say something.
You quickly talked about humans are a part of nature or something like that. And what I like to really point out is humans are part of nature.
Yeah.
Nature is dyadic.
Yeah.
Everything in nature, dark, light, sweet, sour, wet, dry. It's just what makes nature so beautiful is its difference.
Mm.
The
Diversity.
different, leaves in the autumn are orange, but in the summer, real green, and in the winter, where are the leaves? Things change, and humans are part of nature.
Mm-hmm.
And in our workshop, when couples come, I take the time to point that out specifically. And guess what? The person you are married to is a little different from you.
Yeah.
So learning
that's very frustrating sometimes, but it's and that has led to problems between you and me, is that knowing this does not always mean we're doing it, but it is always the fact that once we hear another person, in a sense, we hear them into being. They come into being when we allow them into our minds.
Yeah.
And also,
listen, I don't have any complaints. I feel like there's not a part of me except I don't have a complaint
Well,
about you. I
so
feel
if
like
I'm getting this, you don't have any complaints
I feel
about you think I'm
like you've
you
accepted
think I'm hearing you and accepting you, and that you're okay with me. Am I getting that?
Weirdly wonderful is the way I talk about myself. The Aquarian has her own way of
and that
a
you
little weird, but
so
it's wonderful.
you experience me as getting your weird wonderfulness.
Yeah, I feel like
without objecting.
I feel like you accept difference.
That I accept difference.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm. If I'm not doing it well enough, let me know after the podcast.
Can we talk for a second about what, because
yeah.
No, you guys are, no, I love you guys. You're wonderful, and you're great examples of live couples dialogue, and affirming and validating and mirroring. So one of the things that you probably don't know this. I don't know why you'd know this, because it's usually me talking and asking you for your information, but I have used your work in my work for this entire time. And one exercise in particular, because I don't do couples therapy per se. I help individuals and individuals through their relationships through different tools. So whatever they're coming to me for, whether they're being in a group, Harville, you were the first to really teach me about neuroplasticity back in 2018. You described it in a way, and I was in imago therapy at the time. And it wasn't explained to me the same way. It wasn't explained to us as a couple at all, actually. And I was quite upset about that, because I thought, well, geez, had that been explained, I wonder if this would have gone differently. Again, always in perfect timing, no regrets. But in taking the idea of neuroplasticity and then the exercise that I've been using, that I've built on, like you said, what you find fascinating is that the more you do this work, the more you keep digging and you keep fine tuning, and you keep getting sort of refined and excited about refining and a new way of doing something that's more impactful potentially. One of the things that I have created from your core wound exercise is something called a core wound map. And it's taken 6 years of refining, getting to for an individual. Because what I think, and let's talk about this if you disagree, one of the reasons why we aren't good listeners is because of our wounds, because everyone's literally just trying to get their needs met. They're trying to find love and attention and validation but they have no idea how to do it. They don't understand that through listening, because they think, no, I can't listen because I have to convince you that I'm lovable. I have to convince you that I'm worthy. I have to convince you not to leave me, not to abandon me. I think that all of this is driven from these core wounds because we're constantly subconsciously not aware that we're trying to manipulate people into giving us what we need without knowing what we need, identifying what we need, or even being empowered to get our own need met without somebody else necessarily. So I think that, on one side, I don't think it's easy. I think humanity, you said the human race has never really talked or listened. We're not good listeners. And I think that's why. I think it's because we're so confused about who we are and what we need. And we're so wounded and we're just trying to get our needs met that the idea of just listening feels vulnerable, feels like, oh, well, if I just listen, I don't know that I'll get my need met. Like my voice, my effort is my attempt at survival, at not abandonment, at connection. So I think if reframing and looking at dialogue and looking at listening differently, because people who might think of listening might think, well, yeah, I can listen to you. So what? I think we need the next step of, and not that you probably cover this in this book. It's not the next step of what to do. It's the idea of you're not listening. Like you just said, you're two different people where everyone's different. It's that, so I had a hard time for a while with shame about connecting sort of my life path, because I started out as an actor, singer, dancer, moving into personal trainer, moving into coach. And for a while, it didn't really connect until I saw that, oh my God, of course, when you take an acting class, you learn someone else's reality. You learn someone else's history. You learn how to embody a character that isn't you. And all of a sudden now you have a perspective and an interpretation you've never had before because you've never thought about that. And that's what most people, so now I'm of the ilk that everyone should be taking an acting class, because if you don't know how to put yourself in someone else's shoes, then you think your world is right. That everything you interpret, and there's at least, I identified at least 30 different factors that influence interpretation: sexual identity, sexual gender, religion, socioeconomic, health, astrology, all the things. Like there's so many different things that influence the way that we interpret the world, but most people don't know that. They think, if I think this, I see this, that must mean I'm right and you're wrong. And how dare you not react the same way I do? Like the concept that there is another world happening in someone that I live with in the same household, experiencing the exact same thing, is a concept I don't think people understand.
Oh, yeah. I think that's a wonderful, wonderful, beautiful speech. And I underline every sentence in that. And I want to do a sidebar with regard to the book, which is that the book talks about all ecosystems need to do the dialogical process, talk and listen, like corporations, school systems, family systems, religious systems, congregations, everybody. Now, what I want to do in the sidebar is to say that this childhood wound that you're talking about that interferes with listening is interfering with all of the people who are running corporations, all the people who are teaching in the classroom, all the people who are in religious organizations, either on the pulpit or in congregations. All of us are dealing with that. And it's been difficult. One of the difficulties we've had is moving out of the intimate world of couplehood into the rest of the world of relationships, is that people say, well, these are not marriages, this doesn't apply. And what we're saying is it's universal. It works with couples, but it works with everybody because everybody's in the same situation you just talked about, in which the childhood wound has interfered with our ability to really understand. The word I would use is the diversity of interpretations in which all of them are correct. Every person's point of view is true for that person, but they have a piece of reality. So it's true for them. I see reality through another window, through another lens. And if I know that, then I can say, hey, through your lens, it looks this way. Through my lens, it looks that way. Wow, we now have more of reality because I see it through two different lenses. But usually, as you're saying, I would just want to underline it. This is the great delusion of the human mind, is that if I see it and describe it, I'm seeing the truth. We have no idea that nobody can see what they say they're seeing. We always look through a cultural set of glasses. Even our perceptions have been shaped by the belief systems that we grew up in, so that we cannot see pristine, raw reality. We only see reality as interpreted through a cultural filter or a personal filter, or the filter of your personal experience. And to not know that is to not know fundamental truth. And to believe that you see the truth is a fundamental delusion. And it's because it's not reality. And so therefore, all of us are kind of on the pathological spectrum from 1 to 10, because pathology is about not seeing reality, and none of us see it. But if you know you're not seeing it, but that you're reporting how it impacts you, then you're into the way the brain works. In fact, there's even a little piece about the brain that's very fascinating on this topic, is that we all believe that what we see is what is there, and that the brain has this capacity to describe it. Actually, we don't perceive reality. We don't perceive what is there. We anticipate what is there. And when we show up, we anticipate that this is going to happen. And if it doesn't happen the way we anticipated it, then what the brain does is to look at the difference between what was anticipated and what was experienced and correct the perception. So the next time we go and we're anticipating what's going to happen now with this additional piece of information. Now, we don't consciously do that. The brain just does it. It just keeps correcting itself. So it wasn't like that, it was like this. So that's the other thing. I remember when I learned that now some years ago, it's like, oh my God, I thought it was bad enough that we have just different points of view. But what really makes it challenging is that our point of view is our on-ramp into an interaction. We anticipate what we're going to see. So we don't perceive it, we imagine it. And then we show up and it's not that way, then we correct our perceptions, or we don't. We say the thing that we saw that was there shouldn't be there, or it's the wrong thing that was there. And that's really tragic, because that means we can't learn. We can't enlarge our own perceptions to move from the confinement of our experience into the larger experience of something else or of someone else. So we're talking here about real fundamentals. And when you get into therapy, this is what's going on. And that the process in therapy is to come to understand how the brain works. And this is where Helen has been such a major contributor to all the people we work with, because she just has this fascination with brain processes and has developed an amazing presentation about that, which she gives to couples. So if you'd been working with her, you would have gotten your knowledge about the brain.
Of course, I know. No, there was a reason why I didn't get that information. I wasn't supposed to at that moment, because of on a soul level, our contract was done. It got me where I needed to go, and I'm where I'm supposed to be now, and everything is perfect, divine timing. I want to quickly say about, because you mentioned therapy. I want to be clear when you say therapy, because I am not necessarily a proponent of therapy. I'm a proponent of imago therapy. That's it. Anything else should not be talk therapy, in my opinion. No, I have a whole
wow.
I have a 90-minute class called 3 Reasons Why Talk Therapy is Ineffective. Now, imago therapy, I've always said, we go back before I even met you, and I said the only relationship therapy worth talking about was imago therapy. And that goes back to like 2014, 2015. So for me, that's when you say therapy, I want everyone to make sure you understand it's imago therapy we're talking about, not just general therapy, because while I'm sure there are wonderful therapists out there that don't do imago therapy, I think the traditional talk therapy model fails everybody because it doesn't create neuroplasticity. You know something, you're aware of something, but you don't behave any differently when you're in the same situation again. So I think people become victims and they go to get validated, and no one ever challenges their responsibility in their situation. So we need more. There's not enough brain activity for me in a regular traditional talk therapy situation. However, different in imago because you have a structure. You have a structure, you've got a plan, you've got exercises, you've got education. That's what we need. If we take, what's the quote? Is it Einstein? You can't change the problem with the same mind that created it. Well, if you don't learn anything new, then you're dealing with the same information. You're not going to get anywhere. So I just wanted to clarify. And when listening to that, when you think, oh, Harville thinks therapy is good. Yeah, imago therapy, that they created. Okay, continue, Helen.
Yes. Yeah. And I would say I have a similar discomfort with the effectiveness of psychotherapy, which is a talk therapy. And that and you use the exact sentence that I use, which is you can know yourself better through talk therapy, but it doesn't mean you will do anything different. And if you don't do something different, then you simply are now a more educated neurotic who will do the same thing that got you to go to therapy to begin with, but you'll keep going, which is why therapy takes so long.
Now, you just mentioned my name. I don't usually comment, but I will. I think you just mentioned my name.
I did, because Harville was getting ready to pass it on to you because to probably talk about the brain changing through doing this dialogue. But if you have a thought about what I just said, I would love to hear it.
Yes, well, just that at the very beginning, people would go to therapy and talk about their spouse at home who is driving them crazy. And then sometimes the therapist would say, well, bring him in, and the therapist would work. And now, why are you doing that? Well, what imago therapy did was the couples don't talk to me. We have them face each other and ask that take turns with one of them saying, it was really sad for me that you did so and so. I was really disappointed, and the person mirrors and say, oh, so you were sad, and and I just wish you had done something differently. And so what I'm hearing you say is like something done differently. Oh, well, could you tell me what that might have been? Anyway, they put the couple into conversation because it's the client that knows what they wanted and what they are frustrated about.
No.
Well, your therapy you guys created is just effective. I tell people just get the workbook. If you want to just start doing stuff on your own, buy the workbook. Get any love that you want workbook and start to do the exercises together. If you can't find a therapist near you to do it with you, because again, there's a structure. One of the things I say in the top 3 reasons why talk therapy is ineffective is because there's no structure. You could be sitting talking to somebody for years. First of all, did they choose their therapist? Did they know anything about their therapist? Did they know if that therapist, because you guys talked about that there were a certain point in your relationship that you kind of felt like, well, I feel like a big phony because it's not working at home. Like I haven't mastered this at home. Do you know anything about the person you've hired that you're talking to? How well do they do in their relationships or their world? Like they haven't, with having a podcast and people know and and trust me, they hear everything. So I get the credibility of that I do this, that I live this, that I have evidence of using it in my life, using it with my clients. So I think that's another reason. But regardless of the therapist in an imago situation, it's the tools, it's the structure, it's the learning, it's the new ideas. So just like with this book, How to Talk to Anyone About Anything, let's talk about the tools or the awareness. Well, the tool is the dialogue, and but the awareness or the new information, which we've been covering so far today. Helen, I'd love to hear from you about some of those brain changes that happen with listening.
Yes. Well, a lot of people don't know that the 2.4-pound organ in their skull, everybody's skull, is one of the most complicated organs in the universe, or no, in the
It
world.
is, yeah.
And but basically, neuroscientists have simplified how we can learn about the brain and how we can, and actually there was a time when the brain people did not know that the brain, certain parts of the brain changes the more you use it, and that's called neuroplasticity. And when they realized that, they said, well, now go to the right part of the brain and use it regularly, because then that part of the brain gets stronger. So, but back to you can summarize the brain, even though it's very complicated. There's a lower brain that controls vital functions. And when you are hungry, when you wake up in the morning, you should have breakfast. And around lunch, you also get hungry, so have a lunch. And after dinner, it'll tell you when you're hungry and it's time to go to sleep, and you will have had food all day. So it sort of takes care of you. If you accidentally walk into the kitchen in the morning and someone else comes in, and you turn around and put your hand on the stove, thinking it's someone turned it off last night, but it's on, you don't do a strategic plan before your hand just lifts off the stove. And we call that, it keeps you alive, and it's called monologue. And now if the lower brain, the way you accelerate the lower brain is using monologue. People use monologue. And this is where, if they get frustrated, if they get angry at someone, and someone doesn't agree with them, and they go to sleep and they can't sleep because they're mad, it releases very toxic neurochemicals, adrenaline and cortisol. And our work has been studied at a health center, and people who use monologue, and if they're angry, depressed, suicidal, they don't live as long, they die younger, and they're unhappy in their life. Now, to use the sentence stem of dialogue, you move from the lower brain into the neocortex. And there's the left brain hemisphere and the right brain hemisphere, Virgo and Aquarian. And between the two is the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, which is where you move beyond predication, meaning you wonder. And the brain scientists say that is the healthiest part of the brain. Dopamine, acetylcholine, norepinephrine, and serotonin. And you're a relaxed, more wonderful person, and you are healthier, and you have better relationships because you aren't talking, you're listening. And when you say, and is there more about that? Well, oh, your partner loves it. Instead of now, okay, I've been marrying you. When is my time? I'm supposed to talk, you marry me. But then when you say, is there more about that? And that's part of the sentence stems. You have healthier relationships, and you're a healthier person. So there are all sorts of reasons to use dialogue.
Yeah, and Helen, what I'd like you to add to what you're saying is you've reduced it even more to simplicity, so everybody understand the difference between the wise owl brain and the crocodile brain.
We call it crocodile brain and the wise owl. I mean, we have a book on Kindle that you can purchase
on that. Yeah. I just thought when she, what is it? They're cartoons, in fact, they're drawings. That all of a sudden the brain made more sense, even to me. That up here there's a wise owl, and this wise owl is not caught up in emotions. And down here there's this crocodile who has nothing but emotions. And that our job is to regulate the interface between top part of the brain and the rear part of the brain. and that hopefully you live up here and regulate back here, and then you have, and that you can do that. And when you practice doing that, your brain actually creates new neural pathways, so that eventually your brain is not having to practice all the time. It moves into a new level of organization.
And that's the neuroplasticity that
That's
this part of the brain
neuroplasticity.
get. I'm 74. No, I'm 77.
75.
Okay, 75. But
Talking about your age? Did you have to ask Harville what your age was?
yeah. Well, I'm right brain. Right brain is sometimes a fuzzy thinker. The artist and Beethoven and da da da. But
and us Virgos remember how old you were.
but anyway, I don't look 70.
You look about 47.
I know, but you said I'm how old?
75.
75. Okay. 76.
75.
Okay.
So there's more than 10 years between you, huh?
13.
Yeah.
13.
So,
Okay.
and I really credit I love using dialogue for my sake, and he loves it for his sake.
Yeah,
Well,
she married an older man.
Well, you look as youthful, Harville. So I wouldn't have known that there was that much difference between you, because I think, again, the curiosity keeps you young. If I could also add another physiological, I think, explanation or whatever, something to think about, like, so you were talking about the crocodile brain and the monologue, keeps you in, it keeps in a fear of either a past or the future, but it doesn't keep you present. I mean, yes, it's going to protect you in the present, but it has those programs that it runs, that, those subconscious programs, that's where they get stored from the core wounds, right? Is in that part of the brain. But that wise out part of the brain has to, if you're using dialogue, you have to be in the present. Like, you can't be thinking about the future or the past. You have to be present because you're listening. Like, listening is a skill that keeps you present. It's like meditation in reverse. You're just listening to a person versus listening to any inner guidance or guidance from any other sources if you're meditating, because it's like prayer is where you're asking, meditation is where you're listening for the answer, and dialogue and listening feel like keeps you present to being connected, because that's actually connection too, right? When I'm listening to somebody, I'm therefore connected to them, because in this present moment, we're both present. You're talking, I'm listening, there's an exchange happening, we're present and we're connected. And I think there's the whole monologue piece and the whole core wound piece and the whole, I don't even know, like the defensiveness, the fear that people have keeps us all separated and not in the present moment. So the things you just mentioned about all the hormones that help us to feel, all the love, the dopamine, the norepinephrine, the serotonin, that's all stuff that keeps us present. And we want to feel that. That's what we're searching for.
Yeah,
Right?
I just want to compliment you on how rich what you're saying is and how well informed. I'm learning from you. So thank you. Maybe we should see if she would become our agent to the world. I mean, you really get us. And the thing
I do.
It's like I just thank you.
Oh, well, I would love to one day when I'm finished with the next book, because I have a book I'm kind of writing, but it's based on your work, part of it. Like, again, this whole core wound piece that I've sort of taken, and I've created a program called Rewiring Your Core Wound Patterns. So, but that's taken 6 years of development. It's taken 10 years of doing it. It's taken 10 years of talking about it. And it gets finer. Like, because I always keep wanting like another way. What's a faster way to get to the point and get out of here? Like, how do we change this? We don't need all the theory and analysis necessarily. I want to make it short, sweet, and to the point, so you see it and you can make choices about it. And so one day I'd love to share that with you.
I'd love to see that. Yeah,
because you get when people say on podcasts, how did you create this? I'm like, well, I used imago therapy and the core wound exercise. I said, but I've created the core wound map, and it's taken, again, years and years and people going through my program for me to keep fine tuning and going, okay, hold on, you understand it here, but that's not where this is going to make change. We need to make this into, and I've used neuroplasticity as the guide to say, can I tell a really quick, funny story about my cats? I tell this story. So when I get asked now when I'm being interviewed on podcasts I explain neuroplasticity and why the rewire program is something where we challenge people to step outside of their comfort zone, but in an intentional, specific way based on their own wounds and based on their own patterns and their own circuit. Whenever they get triggered, the circuit that happens, then how do we move forward and make a new circuit? How do we make neuroplasticity happen? So Doug and I took two of my 5 cats on an RV trip last year in October. We never rented an RV before. And so we take Luna and Domino because I wanted them to get away from the little one. She's a bit of a terror. And we rent this RV, and I put the cats in the RV as we were packing, and we're outside, and they're like super interested and curious, and they're looking around. We shut the door, we turn on the engine, all of a sudden terror. They run under the bed, under the covers. They are terrified, right? Because they think they're going to die, because they have no idea what's happening. This stimulus is brand new to them. So throughout the time, we parked the RV, they'd come back out, they'd relax, they'd eat, they'd be happy. They'd sleep with us. Next day, same thing, turn the engine on. Oh my God. But every day it got less and less. And by the last day, they were both sitting on my lap as we were driving. And that was to show and demonstrate neuroplasticity, because it's the thing that the understanding that this thing,
Right.
How many people come to my events or won't come to my events because they're afraid of crying? They're afraid of being confronted with a hard thing. I'm like, how do you think you're ever going to get over it? You think that suppressing it's going to help you for the rest of your life? So it's the idea that you're not going to die. Like, people walk in with their arms over their chest, refusing to be broken open. And I'm like, why would you, do you think, like, but the brain says it's unsafe, I'm going to die. And then they do it and they go, oh, I feel better, I didn't die. Which then the next time they do it, it's better and easier, because that's what you had taught me back in 2018 about that was the most clearest neuroplasticity lesson I ever had. I'm like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. So that's kind of what I've been teaching and working with. And is because people think when we talk about it and it sounds really nice, the reality of it for some people is that it's out of their comfort zone. This is going to be out of their comfort zone. Listening is going to be out of their comfort zone if they're not good at it, which is why everyone needs to get this book, because you need to understand why you need to do it. If you're having problems of communicating with anyone in your life, it's called How to Talk to Anyone About Anything. This will help you, and it won't even hurt that much. The things I do are a little more scary and push you a little, more personally. This is just shutting up and being present and listening to somebody, and it won't be threatening. And you can get the same benefits of neuroplasticity as explained here today, for you just to learn how to listen, be present, and know that the person you're talking to, no matter who it is, has a whole different experience in life than you do. Yes?
Yes. So I want to thank you for the cat story. I think that's one of the most beautiful and wonderful stories about neuroplasticity that I've heard. That it starts off, but if you go through and repeat it, after a while, the brain adapts to it, and it's not going to die. And in fact, it becomes a new thing for you. And that was beautifully done. And anytime you want to send that map, I'd love to see it. That sounds like, and I'm hoping we'll do a book on that. That's a very important piece of information to get out to the public.
I'd like to talk about it first because it's something that it's using the very rich exercise you've created about the core wounds and extracting the data from it. It's like, I liken it to, again, another reason why I think talk therapy is ineffective, because I like diagnostics. I like data collection and then diagnostics, so that you know what you're trying to heal. Because if you're in therapy wondering how you're going to change your life, and you're talking about why your partner or your child or your boss wronged you, and that's a story we talk about for 3 months, we are never getting to the fact that you have a core wound that gets activated by these people that they did not put there. This is not about them. This is about what happened between 0 and 7. So anyway, right. But I love to talk about it with you and share it with you because it's not something that I've created and give to people like, here, do this. It takes some help to learn how to extract. Well, I actually did a course called the Roadmap course, and that it's in there. But anyway, I just want to make sure everyone gets everything you want them to know about this book, why they need it. And also, if anyone's listening to this and maybe you haven't been attracted to working with me as a trainer or anyone else that's been on the show, but you feel very strongly like you'd like to help Harville and Helen reach the people that they need to reach. I know you have a certification for safe conversations. Do you still have that?
We have it. In fact, yes, we do. We have now that book is the basis for a program that we've just edited for corporations called Safe Conversations at Work. And we are now working on one called Safe Conversations at Worship. And then we will do one Safe Conversations in the Classroom. and safe conversations in families.
But you also can just, people can sign up and learn to,
Yeah.
um,
So if you sign up to the training program,
even,
you get certification in the training program, and then you can specialize in whatever ecosystem interests you.
If you
want to do the corporate world, then you can get a little tweak, and that'll take it into the corporate world, because we are trying to change the conversation everywhere for everyone, because it is and we think it is a new event on the planet, that when you consider that there's no history of listening, then listening has not been a human agenda, that we're bringing that in. And we're not taking credit for all of this, because we're not that powerful. I think that the collective unconscious is moving in this direction, and that it's showing up now in collective consciousness, that we need to move from monologue, talking down, to dialogue, talking with. And that when we do that, we change everything. We change social institutions, political institutions, economic institutions, marriages, everything changes when you move from parallel monologue to dialogue. That looks simple, but that's tectonic. It's equal to the Copernican revolution, in which human beings discovered the sun is not, the earth is not the center of the universe. It is the sun. And it's took people 400 years to integrate that.
So
and the Vatican didn't apologize to putting Galileo under house arrest until he died, when he told them about it, until about 40 years ago. So 400, he was assigned as a traitor to the church for 400 years, because he dared to say that the basis on which Catholic theology was built was it was an earth-centered universe. No, the earth is not the center. It's just one of the planets. Sun is the center of the universe. This change from monologue as being the only way, and parallel monologue to be the only way human beings interact, to this is equal to that shift.
Could I make a comment? I think you heard something about, I think you said something about global humanity is beginning to realize they need this. Is that
consciousness?
Right?
Yeah, global consciousness.
Consciousness. Well, let me tell you, I think Harville's consciousness is there, and yours and mine. But I think there's been quite a bit of people in different countries that solve problems with murder or bombing each other and killing each other. And I remember the Gaza Strip and Israel was so problematic for a while. I mean, horrible, just bombing each other, and then women and children just killed, and no one arrested the murderers. So this is where I appreciate so much Harville saying we have to get another way out into the world. I think it's time, and we appreciate the book publisher who was so committed to getting it done well and having people purchase it, because this could make such a big difference.
And we call it system change rather than symptom change. You can change all the symptoms you want to, but they will keep recurring until you change the system that produces the symptom. So if we change parallel monologue to dialogue, you've changed the system of human interaction.
So for those of you who might be using dialogue in the next couple of weeks, your world changes. You are helping to change the world.
Your world will change, and you will change the world.
And then when you're so excited about that and you want to help others, you're going to go to harvillandhelen.com, and you're going to find somewhere there's a safe. What is the course called?
They should go to a website called quantumconnections.com. That's the name of the company. And there they will learn how to become certified as a safe conversations trainer, leader. They get that. They can take it for a personal course, just a little 4-hour course, or they take the training to become a leader who can present the course.
And a safe conversation teaches dialogue. Taking turns talking and listening.
Safe conversations, is the dialogue process.
Right. I just want to make sure that we emphasize that, because I want people to know that there's another step beyond using the dialogue, getting the book, because even though we can sell as many books as humanly possible, I also think that in empowering people to know they can help make change by taking the course and being certified and then being able to facilitate will help this movement speed up a little bit.
Right. And that's really our goal, is that the book will inspire you to go take the course. Then you become a trainer and you're a part of the process of global transformation, because everybody you teach, they learn dialogue, they bring it into their ecosystems. Eventually you get the ripple effect, and hopefully we'll get that in the next 30 years, and the world will shift and become dialogical and not monological anymore.
I'm going to hold that vision for you, and I'm going to hold the vision that we see proof of that in your lifetime.
Ah,
Yeah,
wow. Okay.
and on their websites, you can also purchase a video of Harville and me talking to you in your home. You actually don't have to sign up for training and things like that. There's simple ways.
They're on demand.
I understand. Okay, thank you for that. And I want people to pay you to be involved and to get involved at a more serious level, because they want to help change the world. There are people out there who are looking for a purpose and they don't know what their purpose is. And I want to give them another one, or give them an option of one if this resonates. And I want to tell them how to do it if this resonates, because it's a good purpose to have.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. That's really wonderful. You are now a part of the project of global transformation through dialogue. Thank you very much. Whether you chose or not, but I think you chose to be. Yeah,
I did. Everybody get the book.
And basically it says on your wall, put the book down for a minute.
Anything is possible.
Like a global community. Well, here's anything is possible. World peace.
It's possible.
Definitely. Yeah. And definitely with the tools that you guys have created and share with us. So thank you again, as always. Hopefully you'll come back on next year for another, maybe we can talk about next year for the next Consciousness Upgrade Summit 2.0. We can focus on this and wherever the status of quantum connections is, and how people can get involved and be a part of that evolution.
And last comment, someone who is a Women Moving Millions woman had read a book on Mother Teresa, who won the Nobel Peace Prize, and said, Helen, I've heard you and Harville say dialogue skills are so simple they could be taught in school. I want to bring you and Harville to Liberia on a screen and in an auditorium, and you teach the teenagers in art.
I was teach the teachers.
It's the
teachers.
High school principals, high school teachers, and a few students.
Yeah.
And it was about 150 people.
Right.
And they loved it. And then there was 2 years later, there was a presidential runoff. And one presidential candidate said, if I'm elected, these are my 4 priorities. Dialogue is one. And the other said, if I'm elected, everyone will use dialogue. And Deborah is teaching he won. And Deborah is teaching his presidential cabinet to dialogue. And then there are other countries, but anyway, imagine if this was happening in the United States. But in South Korea, people are graduating. In South Korea, the safe conversation dialogue is being taught. And the graduations from a college want to take it to China, Japan, and Taiwan. So this isn't wishful thinking. That's my point. Last comment. And it really is happening around the world.
And I just got an email from one of our friends in Iran who is thinking has signed up for the training today.
Okay.
Because it's on Zoom. So one of our trainees is in Iran learning to do the dialogue process today.
Great.
So
great.
Anyway, it's spreading around the world. It's becoming a movement.
Yeah.
So everybody who joins it adds to the energy, and ultimately there'll be a ripple effect. Then we will study war no more.
All right, everyone, this is your task. So keep it going. Share this episode with anyone who you think needs it or is looking for a purpose and would like to get on board with this. You're going to go to harvillandhelen.com. You're going to buy the book. You're going to go to quantumconnections.com. And if you don't know what to do, reach out to me and I'll direct you where to go. I will help you help them make this a reality. Thank you guys always for coming on and sharing your wisdom.
Yes.
Thank you so much, JJ. You are wonderful. You are amazing.
Thank you, Harville.
Fantastic. And we'll see you down the path.